Ted Theodoropoulos, CEO, Infodash, host of the Legal Innovation Spotlight podcast, legal tech thought leader, and overall good guy. Welcome to the People in Legal podcast.
Thanks, Tim. It's good to be here. It's good to be on the other side of the mic.
I was going to say, we've turned the tables here, haven't we? For everybody joining us, my name is Tim Kenney. I'm a licensed attorney, and I've been in the legal space for way too long, over 30 years. These days, I have a consulting business called 𝗟𝗲𝗴𝗃. I help legal tech companies go to market, refine your partner process, and also expand geographically. All right, Ted. So like we said, we've turned the tables here. You're going to be interviewed now. You're very well known within the legal tech North America circuit for sure. You're a big player in 𝗟𝗲𝗴. The Legal Innovation Spotlight podcast is fantastic. A lot of people know about it. But for people who don't know about you, can you give us a little bit of your personal background and how you got into legal tech?
Yeah, that's a big topic. You and I met, how long ago was that? It's more than 10 years,
Oh,
12,
yeah.
15.
It's got to be at least 15 years. Yeah.
Yeah, 15 years ago. I used to work for Microsoft back in the day. I was on the SQL team, and like a lot of tech guys, I started consulting on the side. I landed a really big client out of the gate. It was Maersk Sealand, largest shipping company in the world by several orders of magnitude. And I built their stevedoring billing system for them on SQL Server, and it was like a Microsoft Access front end because they needed they needed a robust reporting engine, and Access in the early 2000s was a great way to do that on the front end. So that was 2000, 2001. Last I heard, the back end of that application is still in production 26 years later.
That's crazy.
Which is,
Wow.
and I heard that about 2 years ago. So as of 2024, they were still using it. So started consulting on the side, left Microsoft for my day job, and I went to Bank of America, still continued to moonlight. And then during the financial crisis, while I was at 𝗟𝗲𝗃, I was lucky, very fortunate to not be impacted by that. I mean, I saw people carrying their box out who had been at the bank for like 30 years.
Wow.
And that was kind of a trigger for me. Like, people who had dedicated their lives to that business were literally shown the door. And so I decided to jump out. So in '08, I kind of started the process, and we fell down the legal rabbit hole really early. I had a neighbor who was an attorney at Moore and Van Allen in Charlotte. I think they're an AIM law firm. And he decided to jump out and start his own default services practice. And when he first started out, it was like him and a paralegal in a Regis little shared office space. And they scaled that thing to, like, I don't know, 300 employees in something insane, like less than 3 years, because obviously foreclosures were through the roof during the financial crisis, and they were right place, right time. So that was kind of my first legal client, and I really dove in deep to understand the business. While I was at 𝗟𝗃𝗃, I received my Lean Six Sigma green belt and then black belt. So I was a process engineer at 𝗟𝗃𝗃. So I helped productionize all of the processes and default services is very process heavy. They use a BPO, business process outsourcer in India, who would do a lot of the grunt work and send it back. And there were a lot of handoffs, and it was literally like an assembly line, which made it perfect for a Lean Six Sigma exercise. So I hired another black belt, and we went in there for, I don't know, I was in there for about a year. The other black belt, and Matt was the attorney, ended up hiring him on full time, and he stayed there for multiple years. But the work that we did there got written up by the ABA Journal. It was like cover story.
Amazing.
And I thought to myself very naively, I was like, my phone's going to be ringing off the hook. Like, I just literally rebuilt a law firm. And when I say rebuilt, like, they had pods which are basically groups of people who would work on one part of the process. And we installed 40-inch monitors up on the walls so you could see where cases were hitting bottlenecks through the process. We had control charts. I mean, it was really
Very
a
cool.
big deal. And I thought law firms are going to want this. And it was crickets.
Isn't that funny though? I mean, that's who I deal with companies like that right now. That's who I try to consult with, and you know, they get the one big sale. It's like we made it, we made it. It's like, oh no, you don't realize you're at the starting line. You're not at the finish line. So, anyways, keep telling us about your evolution.
Yeah. So we were doing a lot of technology transformation work at the firm too. Like we moved them to a new case management system, and that was my first legal intranet. We built an intranet for them to disseminate internal communications. And then we kind of fell down the rabbit hole. You know, at the time we were small. It was, I mean, maybe 7, 8 people. You know, it was me and some contractors. I had a couple full-time guys, and you know, we evaluated the different paths in front of us. And the reason we chose legal was, you know, at the time, you know, I had spent years in financial services at Bank of America. I'd spent years in technology with Microsoft. I had spent years consulting with Maersk Sealand in the shipping world. And all of those organizations, they don't buy from little small consulting companies. Like you got to be ISO, you know, SOC 2, like all the alphabet soup. And we didn't have that. But law firms were easier to work with in that regard. So we doubled down on legal and we started building bespoke intranets and extranets. We ended up partnering with your former company, Handshake, and became an implementation partner. Adderant bought Handshake in 2017 and basically kicked us out of the partner
Huh,
program after we had done good work with you guys.
did really good work. Yeah.
And it was kind of saw us as competitive. So that really forced our hand. We were like, all right, what happens when big companies buy small innovative companies? You know, things usually don't go well.
Right.
So we said, you know what, we're going to build our own platform, and we decided that we were going to be cloud only. And this is 2018.
So you're way ahead
So
of the curve. You're
way
way
ahead
ahead
of
of
the
this is
curve.
when large law firms were telling everyone, "We will never be in the cloud. We'll never be
Exactly.
in the cloud." Yeah.
So being early has advantages and disadvantages. We really had to kind of slow play it. So we kept the consulting business going for another 4 years while we worked on the product. And we would get, you know, an early adopter here or there. But, you know, the benefit was that we started greenfield. So we didn't have any legacy infrastructure that we had to retrofit into the cloud architecture. We were able to start with a blank slate and really build Infodash from the ground up. And
𝗟𝗲𝗴𝗹 was the name of the company, your former company, correct?
exactly. And so in 2022, we sunset 𝗟𝗲𝗴𝗹 and stood up Infodash. And man, our timing was really good. So that's kind of the benefit of being early is when the timing hits, you're positioned and you're ready to go. So we were ready, and it was really COVID, man. So COVID really drove firms to the cloud. At that point, you know, the natural sequence with law firms and most enterprises actually is, you know, they start with messaging, right? So move exchange to the cloud. It's low value, it's high touch, it's a lot of redundancy. And so law firms started moving exchange to the cloud 2020, 2021. And then the next step is like those ancillary 65 workloads like SharePoint. So in 2022, like a lot of firms were like, okay, we're ready to retire our on-prem data center footprint, you know, or our colo infrastructure, and we're ready to move into M365 in earnest. So timing was really good. You know, our first year, we sold a handful of deals, I think at 10 or 11, and that was enough to keep our little small team busy.
Which is
Eh,
actually a lot, that's a lot of deals for intranets when you're just getting started, right? You don't have a big name, and we all know how law firms buy, right? That if the firm across the street buys, yeah, okay, now I'm interested. Now when my peers are buying, now I'm interested. So slogging it out, you're making it sound easy, but it's not easy.
No, it wasn't easy. We had a lot of wrinkles to iron out in our delivery process. You know, we had delivered services for 14 years at that point, right? So we knew what we were doing, but there was a whole new dimension now that part of the thing we had to fight was, you know, entropy, which is law firms wanting to customize the hell out of the platform and like, okay, do we merge this back into the code base? you got to make some really tough decisions on how you manage that, because otherwise you're going to have a mess of a code base, and it's a balancing act.
Not to mention questions on IP issues, right? Fine
Yeah,
line.
we've been very, as a product company, we've been very drawn hard lines around IP.
Have to,
And
right?
you have to. That's the enterprise value of the business, and we make no compromises when it comes to who owns the IP. Even if the client develops the solution, we own the IP. Obviously, we're sensitive to how we manage that, but at the end of the day, if a client comes up with a great idea, we can't not execute on that just because somebody did it first. Like, we got to be able to build things back into the product and make it better for everybody. And there were a couple of deals. We almost lost one deal. I don't think we ever lost a deal over the IP language, but one of them, and what we ended up settling on was, okay, look, we'll install it in your tenant. They're still clients today. They're great clients. But they were like, no, what we're doing is proprietary. So we said, all right, look, we'll install it and then you guys go build it and just don't show us. That was
Sure.
the solution that we came up with.
Mm.
And they're very happy clients to this day. So we started off on the internet side because there was demand there, but we always knew we wanted to be in the extranet game as well, because, HiQ at that point, they got bought in 2019 by
Yeah.
TR. And, it's the same old story. Big company buys smaller company, and over time, innovation slows or dies or sometimes goes backwards. So we knew that we wanted to be in the extranet business, but we were so damn busy. Every time we would hire people, that for to go work on extranet, they would get sucked into intranet projects.
Yeah.
So what we did, we stood up a team offshore in South Africa. We have about 8 people there today, to kind of like skunk works that R&D.
Very cool. Wow.
Yeah.
And it's paid off. So, I mean, congratulations. You've been nominated for 𝗟𝗲𝗴𝗃 Trailblazer Award and also Solution Provider of the Year. So the 𝗟𝗲𝗴𝗃 Trailblazer Award is around your work on extranet with Gowings, right?
Yeah, yeah, and we're finalists. So I'm flying out tomorrow, in fact, and hopefully we uh we can take one or both of those awards home. But
Cross
yeah,
fingers.
so
Let's go. Yeah.
yeah, Gowling was an early intranet customer of ours, and when we launched extranet, they said, "Hey, you know what? We have this portal." And for those that are interested, I did a LinkedIn Live where you can go, and we did a full demo of it a couple of weeks ago, and you can understand what the solution's all about. But the underlying concept is they have this database of, I don't know, it's about 30,000 documents that are highly curated and annotated. They have like 800,000 rows of SQL data that are basically annotations to this legislative library, and they wanted to share it with their clients. So they said, you know what, your extranet platform would work perfect for that, but we need this AI search component to it. So we're like, funny you should ask. That's on our roadmap. So we partnered with them last fall, and we started building out our AI search solution. So how it works is we have a content pipeline management console where you can ingest curated content. Like, we don't crawl and reindex the entire DM corpus like a Deep Judge or a BA Insight. The signal to noise ratio in a law firm DMS, as well as anybody, it's really low. So we're focused on like curated, annotated data sets that we can crawl and index using Azure AI Search, and then expose either internal facing or client facing AI solutions where you can leverage Azure OpenAI to ask questions of the data. So it's crawled, indexed, vectorized. We build skills, workflows, and Gowling's clients have a interface that Gowling owns and manages, where they log in securely with their Microsoft credentials. So there's no credential management, and they have a restricted view of things that they're able to see. And it's been a huge hit. Like, it's a great retention tool for their customers. It's a great way for them to differentiate, which, in this new world of tech, like, law firms have historically differentiated themselves on brand, people, footprint, practice depth. all of those things that are largely people centric, we're now entering into an era where technology is now going to enter the chat. Right? That's going to be part of
Absolutely.
that equation. That,
Yeah.
like, people and brand, all that stuff is still going to matter. But make no mistake, if your client service model does not tell a good story on how you're using tech to enable your practice, you are going to have a really hard time differentiating yourselves. And you can't do it by buying Harvey or Lagora. They're great tools, throwing no shade in their direction. It's just they're off the shelf tools. You really have to leverage the collective knowledge and wisdom of the firm that only you own as the law firm
Yeah.
to do things differently than the firm down the street.
So everybody watching this, for a deep dive, go to Legal Innovation Spotlight website and podcast and watch the Gowlings. This is really, really, that you break it down really well. And what it made me realize, Ted, it's kind of the same theme all over again, right? So when these AI tools came out, I started thinking to myself, wow, is this the death of like intranets and extranets, and is everybody just going to build versus buy? And then really, Infodash is positioned perfectly right now because it's the same old garbage in, garbage out problem, right? That's why you're not indexing the entire corpus of a DMS or all the data you have out there, because most of the data is crap. And if you feed data into a agentic AI engine, you're going to get crap back. It assumes it's all good, right? So, or it's at the same level, where because you've curated the data, because you're getting just the good stuff, you're getting good stuff back. So the coolest thing that I saw that you're doing is, for everybody that's watching, can you kind of give us a version that even I can understand, talking about how you're kind of being the master MCP for AI engines existing within a law firm?
Yeah. So after November of 2022, we kind of took a step back and we looked at our architecture. We have this layer, it's an Azure appliance that we call our integration hub. And we built we started in 2018 with this. And the sole purpose of it, you'll be able to appreciate this as a guy who used to sell intranets, was to tap into all the back office data sources like practice management, experience management, i.e., foundation, CMS, DMS, HRIS. So we have this Azure appliance that has integrations into all those systems for law firms. And then it presents a security trimmed, unified API that respects ethical wall boundaries. So we wire it into Intap walls, into iManage SPM. So now, we took back and it's like, wow, wait a second. Like, let's zoom out here. Like, our core infrastructure is this integration hub. And with that, you can now light up all of Microsoft's AI capabilities. So Azure AI Search, Azure OpenAI, Copilot. Copilot doesn't have integrations into all these solutions, but with our integration hub, you now have access to
And
it.
as usual, they never will, right? And that's your
Right.
sweet spot. And the richer the data and the better the integrations, the better the AI is going to work for you. And so you're at the perfect position. And I think that congratulations for you again. You're out in front of it. So if firms are thinking, well, geez, I really don't need anything like that anymore. No, you need it now more than ever. Now
You,
more
you,
than ever.
You really do, man. And it's funny. There was a lot of chatter about is AI going to meet in the death of KM? Absolutely not. Like, KM is more important now than it ever has been. Like, there has been such a lack of data hygiene in law firms for decades. Like, think about how lawyers check in documents. Do you think they profile them?
Yeah.
No, they do not. Whatever if you force them to pick a field, it's the
Click,
first
click,
one on
click.
the
Let's
list.
go. Or even like the auto profiling features. Yeah, whatever, close enough.
Right. Exactly. So now we're in an era where that actually matters, and we're going to have to pay back some technical debt, and we're going to have to think about things differently. But yeah, AI is not the end of intranets and extranets or KM. It's really it's a whole new era. And yeah, I was telling you before we got started here, when we first designed our architecture, we were like, you know what? It's painful because every deployment, like, we have to go into the client's tenant, we have to install integration hub, we have to wire it up, we have to understand, we have to do a data mapping exercise. as you know, they all bastardize elite and adherent and put stuff in fields that shouldn't be. Like we have to.
And they're all different, and that's the thing, like you said, within legal, nobody's got an out of the box, especially with the practice management systems. Everybody's got unique setups, unique fields, the way that they use them. Why, I don't know, some person who got promoted to CFO, 30 years ago, decided they want to do it this way, and that you're stuck with it. Anyway,
Exactly.
so if what I'm leading you to is that's not easy. Making those integrations is not easy, and but it also requires tweaking every time you do it.
And it requires maintenance. We pay money to each of these firms to stay abreast of changes that are coming with APIs, and we have to test. Nobody's vibe coding Infodash. I dare you. I dare you, because it's going to be stale. You're going to need to revibe code it 3 months from now because
Right.
everything changes underneath the hood.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was gonna kind of lead you. I was thinking there's a lot of firms out there who might be thinking, "Oh, we're back in the buy versus build mentality, or build versus buy." Remember, so like when intranets, we faced that 15 years ago, right? You came out with your intranet, isn't this cool? Oh, we could do that. We could make that. And can you really? You can make a pretty interface, but beyond that, the dirty work is the integrations, the relationships, the security, etc.
Yeah, like, and I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it's completely not practical. Like
Oh,
it would be the ROI would be so negative on that, even if you could vibe code it, which I think would be difficult. Cause like we have hooks into Entra, into Teams, like deep infrastructure, like Azure SQL, like the PMS, the DMS, and all of that has to be managed. And again, one breaking change in an API and your system no longer works. So it just wouldn't make sense.
you could do it, but then
Yeah,
right, like you said, the cost of maintaining the people just to maintain the data, update the software, etc., it's literally not worth it. On top of it, you want to make that mistake, you want to do that, and at least if something breaks, Ted, you're on top of it right away, right? Because either one of your clients tell you, or you've got it, you saw it coming. Boy, if you're a law firm, you really don't want to do that. Have your client tell you, "Guess what? We were trying to use this today and it broke, and we're not happy."
right. And imagine doing that, like maintaining those integrations for dozens of systems. It just wouldn't make sense. So I feel fortunate in that the ability or the firm's appetite to vibe code their intranet, they'd lose interest very quickly in doing that. So yeah, we kind of zoomed out and we're like, man, this integration hub really is kind of our core infrastructure, and intranet and extranet are just use cases. Uh, you can actually use our integration hub as a backplane to vibe code against. So we have something. I'm doing a LinkedIn Live in a couple of weeks where me and my CTO, I think it's titled, "What if your internet could build itself?" And we're going to vibe code web parts. So we're going to use our
So cool.
integration hub. Dude, wait till you see it. Like it's going to blow your mind. It uses Cursor. So, you open Visual Studio Code, but he literally is going to type in what he wants that web part to do and hit submit, and it's going to build it, and you're going to see it live
So cool.
manifest itself. So like I'm a big believer. I'm all in on vibe coding. Do it where it makes sense.
Exactly. I mean, like, for example, I vibe coded my website. Took me 3 hours. Well, it kinda looks like it took 3 hours, but it's it's amazing what you can do with vibe coding, but don't go down the primrose path thinking that it's gonna solve all the answers for you. It's gonna make you a pretty picture, and it's gonna get you started really nice. But if you don't have security, data, integrations, you got nothing.
Right, and you have to wire all this up with your walls, right? Like, that is not a trivial process. Like, it took us years to really understand inclusionary, exclusionary, pessimistic, optimistic, like, all
Mhm.
these different configurations that law firms use to deploy their ethical walls, and so not only do you have to build and manage all the integrations, and the security and the ethical walls. Like, if you want to vibe code the UI, like
Right.
we encourage it. Like, please do. You'll be happier. Our services team won't grow to 300 people like it seems to be trending towards right now. And you'll get stuff done the way you want it faster. So yeah, I'm all in on vibe coding, but I think we've gotten like people are now vibe coding some interesting things, and the jury's out on whether or not these solutions will ever be viable. Like there's somebody, his name's Will Chen on LinkedIn. He just vibe coded Harvey basically and put the source code on GitHub and it looks pretty damn good. But I'm sure there are devils in the details. And like, Harvey has, I think there are like 600 people now, right? Working on the product and there's going to be new things. If you want to keep feature parity, who's going to manage that? Like somebody's got to do it. And you can't just you have to have engineering chops to vibe code, at least as it stands today. Like we have an agent that runs inside Infodash that picks up tickets from our support portal, vibe codes the solution, and submits a pull request that then our engineers review and
Oh,
edit and then push it. So yeah, use vibe coding where it makes sense, but the prospect of vibe coding Salesforce or SharePoint or Infodash or these things that have like deep roots in your infrastructure, I think you need to draw a line there because it just doesn't make sense.
well, on top of it too, I mean, only very large firms can do that. I know we're seeing really large firms, cozy up with the major AI players, but for for your purposes, Ted, for Infodash, now you're honestly only usually large law firms, AmLaw 200,
Yeah.
could really afford what you were offering before. But what you're doing now, doesn't that kind of bring it down the market a little bit? I mean,
Well, so in our target market is law firms with 100 attorneys and up,
mhm,
and the reason is twofold, really. It's law firms smaller than that, typically intranets or comms mechanisms, they don't have that much information to communicate. It's like
yeah,
probably our most used feature in Infodash is our firm directory. Like if you're in 100-person law firm, you know everybody. Like you
yeah,
don't need to drill down and find out what attorneys you have that focus on IP that are admitted to the California bar who speak Spanish and who are a notary.
right,
But that's a real query in a big
yeah,
law firm. Like they need to answer questions like that. So part of it is that. Another part is like there needs to be a certain level of capability on the law firm side. Like if they have no Azure infrastructure, it makes our job really hard. Like we're not
right.
consultants. Like we have to set all this up and we got to figure out SSO and there's just a lot of things. So I would say we're
Well,
s
and the integrations too, right? You've done deep integrations with the applications that larger law firms use. So if you look at, down market a little bit, something like a Clio or something like that, they're kind of doing it themselves because they have to.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna stay in kind of the large law space, but now we're opening up, instead of just internet and extranet, we're now dabbling in the enterprise search space. So enterprise search has been I've heard people jokingly call it that's where the place of lost hopes and dreams.
I've fought that battle too. But
I know
but
you have.
but isn't it funny that like your solution, it's perfect. It's the same problems you always had with enterprise search, right? Bad data, too much data, you get crap back. And so I'm searching too many things, I'm getting too many bad hits. I have to put in too many refiners to get anything halfway decent. But again, your content hub really helps in that regard, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, it does. And it allows us to leverage all of Microsoft's native AI capabilities that we have a drastically improved output as a result of that. So we see a really bright future in solutions, delivering solutions like what Gowling delivered. Like law firms, big law firms, especially in each practice area, they typically have these like repositories. Like could be a 50 state survey, it could be, a US PTO database, they have these repositories of data and content that they actively maintain to facilitate their practice. And now we're giving them a tool and a platform to AI enable that, by tapping into it, crawling, vectorizing, and then giving what's different about us and other enterprise search platforms is we have the delivery rails. So SharePoint Online is a fantastic application delivery mechanism. Like you can build full stack React JS components and embed them in SharePoint and push them out to your entire firm and then persona target them so only certain people see them. They're embedded with all the security and they respect the ethical wall boundaries that the firm has applied on the data side and the presentation layer side. So that's kind of how we're different than some of the enterprise search players out there. They're doing the search piece. We're also doing the presentation delivery, which is arguably
Well, well, and for end users, very important, right?
Mhm.
That's that's what your end users really care about. Well, obviously, they want good results, but if they don't like the way it looks, it's like the analogy I always used to use is, you can have the best product in the world, but if it looks ugly, or you can have the best food in the world, but if you put a plate of something that looks horrible in front of somebody, they're not going to eat it. So
Yeah, it's true.
presentation's important. So what other cool things are you doing? What else is new at Infodash?
Oh man, we're expanding into the UK. We have a UK sales presence now. We've got a sales team of 5. So we have a VP of sales. We got 3 reps in the US. We got 1 in the UK. We're
Wow.
starting to get some momentum internationally, which is great. What's interesting about the UK market is I've always viewed them as being ahead on like innovation, which I think they are. Like, they have more mature innovation functions in the UK compared to the US. A lot of the US innovation functions started really as marketing exercises, to be candid,
Sure.
and that has changed since AI. Now there's this existential threat looming on the horizon, and now law firms know they actually have to deliver on that. But they've been doing really good innovation work abroad for a long time, but they are behind on we see them using much more legacy tech. So, there's a lot that are still on-prem. They have GDPR over there. It's a different regulatory environment. So that's actually good for us because we can help them modernize. So we see a really big opportunity abroad, and we are in 1 in 3 Am Law 200 firms now.
That's amazing.
Um, I
Wow.
know, in 4 years and some change,
Yeah.
1 out of 3. So we're anxious to get traction, and things are going great. We had a press release with McFarland's. They're a very prominent UK firm, and we're excited about. HiQ they were a UK. They
Mhm.
started in the UK, so they have a big footprint over there. And in all honesty, I don't even think anybody at HiQ today would argue this. Like, the platform really hasn't changed since 2019,
Right.
and there are new use cases and needs now and one thing about HiQ is it is a hosted solution and it's very ring fenced, right? So getting data in and out is intentionally hard
Yeah.
because think about when they came to market, that was like late 2000s, early 2000s, like people were scared to death of the cloud. So you wanted an air gap so data couldn't easily get in and out. But like now there's comfort, like everything is in the cloud. So that air gap has now created friction. So our solution is in tenant and therefore we can surface data very easily and again leverage a lot of the firm owned AI platforms and AI tech, which if I was a law firm, man, I would be really nervous about, we call it bringing AI to your data rather than taking your data to AI.
Yeah.
The data to AI model would scare me as a law firm.
I mean, you have to be scared, right? I mean, you've got ethical obligations, and we know from a recent ruling, you put the data out there, that's no longer protected
Privileged.
data. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are the crown jewels of the law firm,
Yeah.
right? Like, not only is it sensitive to clients, I mean, that's the intellectual property, all that past, precedent and work product, like that's the law firm's IP. And you're just gonna upload it into a platform that may end up competing with you in a couple of years.
Right. Right. It's funny, and back to Infodash. At first, when I saw, oh boy, Harvey and Lagora, what's going to happen here with intranets and extranets? But you position yourself so well, where you actually make them more valuable. You make the AI agents more valuable, whichever one a firm chooses to use.
100%. Yeah, and one thing I've been really pleased with that Harvey and Lagora have done is they've put a lot of emphasis on client collaboration, and that has been a area that has been underserved in legal. Like, dude, if you look at like client extranet sites, they're terrible.
Yeah.
You know, they're not interactive. It's like a fancy Dropbox. It's just file sharing.
Right.
And to their credit, they've put a lot of investment. Now, I will say, as a law firm, I would be a little concerned about making my practice of law AI solutions client facing because it instantly makes them sticky. Like once your clients start engaging through there, like it's going to be hard to you need to be able to hot swap your practice of law. The space is moving too fast to put a ring on anybody's finger in this
Yeah.
space,
So true, right?
you
Uh,
know?
That's the other thing I think where you're well positioned, right? You're an established player already. Well, there's a lot of any right now, any application. So whether it's an established application or not, everybody's building AI into it. And there's a lot of tire kicking going on out there, right? So the nice thing that you've got going is okay, check out your different AI agents, but you still need us. You still need us.
Right. Yeah, you still need the data and you need to present it in a unified way. You don't want agents tapping into system of record APIs that A could change, B these agents are currently unpredictable, right? You need to have guardrails around what they're doing and have audit trails. Like you're not going to turn OpenClaw loose in a law firm environment if you want to keep your job
Right, if
anyway.
you wanna
You're
keep
not
your
going
job, if you well, lose your job, you might do it. You'll lose your job real fast, I would imagine.
Yeah. So we are well positioned. And again, it's been a flipping of the script. Like when we would talk to, so we've taken very little venture money. TLTF has invested in us. We're actually, I think, top three in terms of their top three positions, but we've not done a Series A because we really wanted to get further down the path and not have a venture fund telling us to like wring the towel with customers because you know how it is, man. It's like the
Yeah,
minute you get a investor in your cap table, they want to see bottom line performance and
yeah,
or growth at all costs. And it's like, hey, I want to grow responsibly.
absolutely. And it's funny, there's a question I was gonna bring up, it was exactly that, and all this money in legal now.
Yeah,
Can you imagine this 15 years ago? All the venture capital and private equity wanting to invest in legal, didn't want any part of it, really. Or
no,
if they came to the table, it was so expensive, you didn't even really wanna entertain it. But there's a lot out there right now, but I think that if I were you, I'm in the exact same position. I wanna be the master of my own domain here, right? Uh,
yeah, and eventually we will be in a position where we'll want to throw gas on the fire.
sure.
But you got to establish yourself in the market. Well, you don't have to, but we wanted to establish ourselves, maintain a good name and a brand, and not start making compromises that piss customers off early. You know what I mean? It's like
It's funny.
you'll
It's all
tank.
about service. It's all about service. And when you start making your customers unhappy, you start losing customers. And it's funny. Law firms will be very loyal if you're good to them, right? That's pretty much the bottom line. It is a partnership.
It is. It is. It's a relationship business. And, I think that's been part of our momentum in getting to one out of three firms is we've taken care of the customers. Like when people move from a customer firm to a non-customer firm, they bring us in because we did good work for them. And you know how incestuous legal is. It's
Absolutely. It's the same way leaving as it is coming in too, though, right?
right.
You hear the bad stories, oh, what happened? And so, that's one thing that every legal tech vendor has to be aware of. Okay, take in money, but understand where your responsibilities still lay. Understand, the pluses and minuses.
Yeah. And that's why we're going to be very careful with who we bring into the cap table and when we do decide to do, and at some point we'll have to to
Sure.
to, to grow, but we're going to be very selective and pick the right investors. That's why we chose TLTF initially. We know how we know they understand how important the relationships are
Mhm.
and that you can't treat customers poorly. And I'm an open book here, man. Like we've made mistakes along the way, like
What? Oh, I can't believe
just
that.
one or
Don't
two.
quiet. Don't tell people that, Ted. No, I mean, obviously, but I've noticed that sometimes that's almost the best thing you can do. because when you make a mistake and you show the firm, oh, we're going to correct this and we're going to make it right, it builds another layer of trust.
100%, man. 100%. Yeah. Quick little story. We have very intense security reviews on all of our code and our platform. And we had a firm do a third party assessment, and they were live at this point, or they were in dev, and they flagged a couple of things that they marked as critical. They weren't critical. It was like things that you can look at Microsoft's like guidelines and they fell squarely within them, but the firm thought they were important. So, my first, the first draft that someone of an email response, I didn't like the tone of it. I was like, hey, let's take a different approach here and let's go, hey, we'll have, this is important. We understand it. We'll have a game plan. This happened on a Sunday. We will have a game plan and a remediation plan to you by Wednesday. And you should have seen the response. They were like, thank you. Like, we were expecting resistance and
Yeah,
you guys took it seriously. So you can turn those things around where it's like, okay, if it's important to the customer and you make it important to you, like they will go to battle with you.
absolutely. So important. All right, Ted, I've spent a lot. You've been very gracious with your time. Uh, what other advice would you give to law firms right now and to legal tech vendors? You've been in legal tech now for a long time, so
Yep.
you've seen how it changed. So give me a good piece of advice right now for law firms, and give me a good piece of advice for legal tech vendors.
So if I were a managing partner at a law firm right now, the most important role, even more than attorneys in your practice, which this is going to be a big mind shift, are your legal engineers. They are going to be the most important role in a law firm, barring maybe just your top rainmakers, right? Because those are the boots on the ground that are going to help you through this tech transformation. And what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a lot of these people who have historically been underpaid and undervalued get snapped up by vendors that are now selling them back their time at $500 an hour.
Yeah,
And I think it's a loss for the law firm. So
yeah.
if I were in law firm leadership right now, I would place a really big emphasis on assessing what legal engineering talent I have and retaining it and expanding my capabilities in the legal engineering space. Uh, for legal tech vendors, God, there's so many lessons to pass along.
Well,
Um,
how about let's put this in conjunction with AI.
yeah.
So, what are you doing with your applications with AI? How do you treat AI?
So AI right now is a very overcrowded space. There's startups getting funding that probably shouldn't, just on like hopes and dreams.
You know, it
And
reminds me of Ted. Do you remember there was a commercial back in the day when the internet first came out, and there it was. I can't remember who it was for, but they were interviewing some kids at a table, and they're some a venture capital, and they're saying, "Well, we're very excited to hear about your new application." Well, it's really not an application. Well, it really does this. It really doesn't do that. Well, you have a website, don't you? Yeah. Well, I can't, gentlemen. I think we have to fund this. It's kind of around the same thing with AI now, right?
it is, man. If you can fog a mirror and you've got a good idea, like you can probably get a check. And that's good and bad. On the good side is it's providing access to people who have ideas. On the bad side is when founders really need to be aware of the implications of when you have a down round. So if you come in and establish a high valuation and then you raise a subsequent round at a lower valuation, you take the dilution hit. Investors protect themselves from
Right.
down rounds. And it's a momentum killer. Like, people join businesses who are expanding their valuation, right? Stock options and all those sorts of things. So swinging for the fences too aggressively on your valuation, I think, can come back to bite you. And look, we're going to have a correction at some point. If you remove COVID from the data set, which arguably you should, we're on like a 16-year bull run. The average bull market in the US is about 7 years, right? So we're at over 2x overdue for a correction. So when that happens, and we just keep flooding more capital into the market, when that happens, the music's going to stop, and you need to have a very defensible position, cash reserves, And if you got too far out ahead of your skis, like I know one company who shall remain nameless that spent 7 figures on their public facing website.
Yeah.
They were a startup, 7 figures, over $1 million.
That's why I'm consulting what I'm doing. I see this all the time too, and it's like, whoa, first things first. And
Yeah.
$9 million seems like a lot of money, but boy, you can go through that really fast. So, know what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. So that would be I'm a big fan of TLTF. I think they get it in the marketplace. You're not going to go get an unrealistic valuation with them. That's not their model. I was on a webinar today where they had a expert who was talking about fundraising, and it's not just capital. They can make introductions. So I like to give those guys a shout out because they've been great to us.
And
So be careful who you decide to hitch your wagon to.
great advice. Well, you've been so generous with your time, Ted. Thanks so much. Continued success for Infodash and for you personally.
I appreciate it. It's good to talk to you, Tim.